Good afternoon, everyone. This is from FFPI, and we have a series of webinar CME. This is the third one from Surat. This is only because of the interest of Dr. Bajpai sir, President FFPI, and he has a keen interest for doing such things. In this COVID situation also, we are meeting on this every Thursday, and this is the third episode. Out of 10 episodes, we have adjusted. On behalf of FFPI, I request Dr. Bajpai sir to welcome speech.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Good afternoon to all of you in Monsoon series. It's a Monsoon semi-webinar series which we have been arranged with the support of CIPLA, Cresta Division. And first speech was Monsoon, Derma in Monsoon. Second was Gastro in Monsoon. And it is third, it's Fever in Monsoon. Okay. Today's in series, all viewers, all branches, all family physicians of all units, I welcome to all of you, especially to our Surat branch, Dr. Girish Modi, President Surat, Dr. Jain, Secretary, Dr. Girish Modi, and today's speaker, Chirag Chotwani and Pratik Sawaj. This is infectious disease consultant, and I welcome to all of you on the behalf of FFPI. Thanks all. Over to Girish.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Ramesh Jain to give an introduction of Dr. Chirag Chotwani.
Good evening, friends. It is my proud privilege to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Chirag Chotwani. Dr. Chirag Chotwani completed his MD Medicine from Smear Hospital, Surat. Later did fellowship in infectious disease from prestigious Institute of PD Hinduja Hospital and Research Center. He had special interest in infectious diseases and HIV right from his early days of residency.
Girish bhai.
Pursued
Girish bhai.
also an hematological profile in HIV positive patients. He has various presentation and publication to his credit. He has been an active member in various conferences and given lot of seminars and lectures in infectious diseases. At present, he is working for his indispensable contribution in management of COVID-19 patients in Surat. He is also a nodal officer at Mission Hospital for the same. Once again, I welcome you. Thank you. Over to Dr. Chirag bhai to continue his lecture. Hello.
Chirag bhai.
Yes, one second. I'll stay for slides.
Okay.
So are we able to see the slides?
એમ કરો તમારે આ જે લિંક છે ને તમારે બીજા વાઇફ ના મોબાઈલ ઉપર કરો ને વાઇફ ના મોબાઈલ પરથી લિંક કરો ને તમે.
Are we able to see the slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Many people could not open the site. I just want to request how to open the link. So many doctors are messaging me that link is not opening.
It is on
Asking for IP address.
Go for Zoom also.
Not on Zoom, that Facebook link. Hello?
Yes. There should not
many
be any
doctors are asking, they cannot open the link, that is shared with photograph.
We have already.
problem?
No, not the issue.
નહીં પેલી સ્વર્ણિમ વાળી છે. હેલો, પેલી સ્વર્ણિમ વાળી છે. આપણે ઝૂમ વાળી
હા,
છે, ઝૂમ વાળી લિંક.
સ્વર્ણિમ વાળી નથી ટચ થતી. ઝૂમ વાળી સેન્ડ કરી શકે એ લોકોને?
કરે ને ઝૂમ વાળી.
ઓકે ફાઇન, તો હું કરી દઉં.
ભાઈ ઝૂમ વાળી બી થઈ શકે ને.
ઓકે ઓકે તો ઝૂમ વાળી સેન્ડ કરી દે કારણ ઘણા ડોક્ટર્સ માંગે છે.
તો તમે આપો.
Should I start?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, friends. I would like to thank Federation of Family Physician Association of India as well as Family Doctors, who have given me opportunity to present and at all vector disease. I know India is basically hub infectious disease as well as vector-borne are quite common in India. So let's start with definition. Disease which is transmitted to humans or animals by insects such as mosquitoes or arthropods are called vector-borne diseases. So what are diseases which are vector-borne? Basically, today I will focus on vector-borne diseases which are common in monsoon. So in India, it's like malaria, filariasis, dengue, chikungunya. These are the most common diseases which we find in India. There are other illnesses which are vector-borne, such as fly-borne disease like sandfly fever, leishmaniasis, flea-borne disease like plague, tick-borne like Lyme's disease, relapsing fever, typhus. So, our core practice used to be infectious disease was dengue and malaria. So let me have a differentiating points where to differentiate, how we can differentiate in a simple way. Just to revise our memories, which we have seen now. So, dengue, the causes is transmitted by Aedes aegypti mosquito, and usually it attacks during the day. While malaria fever usually is by Anopheles mosquito, which is usually during the night times. Incubation period is 4 to 5 days in dengue, and malaria it's mostly 10 to 15 days. This is why it's important sometimes. I have a friend who had staying in Surat and had to travel Africa, and somehow after a few days he had fever, and they were trying to diagnose and then they finally came to know it was Vivex, and somehow Africa is having Vivex, but not so common because it's mostly Farsi and all there. So this is how we have incubation periods can be longer. So that's why people will take difficult time to diagnose also. Symptoms wise for dengue, it's mostly it is called as break-borne fever. So headache, back pain, and retroorbital eyeball pain is common in dengue. While in malaria, it's mostly fever with chills, joint pains, vomiting, sweating, anemia. It can be anything. For diagnosis, dengue, it's usually antibody tests for dengue, and for mainly it's by ELISA, which has been a diagnostic test for dengue, which has it has good specificity. For malaria, it's peripheral smear. Now we test for malaria. So, if you can differentiate illness is the bulk of practice malaria, dengue, and chikungunya, which is common in monsoon. So, when chikungunya is having the same mosquito, Aedes aegypti, chikungunya mainly joint arthralgias, main common symptoms. Otherwise, it has maculopapular also is common in. Sometimes it can be seen in chikungunya.
Hello.
Yeah. So, when we discuss symptoms of malaria and dengue, symptoms can be dengue simple fever, it can be hemorrhagic fever, it can be shock syndrome also. So fever, it's mainly fevers, headache, orbital pain, myalgia, arthralgia, weaknesses, rashes. Hemorrhagic fever, it can have hemorrhagic manifestations. Thrombocytopenia can be quite severe, and it can have increased vascular permeabilities, and it can give us sometimes later on can give us to shock syndrome also. Chikungunya, mainly it's joint pain, arthralgia, already we discussed about it. For diagnosis, already we discussed about malaria and dengue. For chikungunya, it's mainly viral isolations by RT-PCR. I know it's quite costly test, around 4,000 to 5,000, but it's specific for that. IgM may sometimes give sensitivity, but not specificity regarding same. Treatment, malaria, artemisinin-based treatment, even in Vivex, in non-eastern states, chloroquine can be used for Vivex. Then it's primaquine. Another treatment also available like quinine, doxycycline, clindamycin. For dengue fever, we'll have only supportive therapy. We don't have treatment for that till now. For chikungunya, it's also supportive treatment. NSAIDs and other sometimes steroids also can be given. So now theory part is out. I will go to case. I have few cases to discuss regarding same. So let's start with this first case. This is a female, 50-year-old female. She was resident of Canada, and in July 2017, she traveled to Kerala. She took vaccination before the travel for hepatitis A and typhoid before travel. During her travel, there was an epidemic going in Kerala. After 2 days of travel, when she read in newspapers, when she was in Kerala, she read in newspapers. It's quite epidemic. Malaria is epidemic here right now, and a lot of cases are there. So 2 days later, after travel, she consulted for chemoprophylaxis for malaria. She said, "I want to get prevented from malaria. I have read like in newspapers there." So that's how she consulted. What offer we can give? We can offer, or what chemotherapy we can offer to her. So let's see the treatment of malaria first of all. There are main treatment is India except northeastern state. What treatment protocol is different, and for northeastern states is totally different. So the except northeastern state is usually in Vivex we give chloroquine for the first day. Second day 10 mg per kg, and third day it's 5 mg per kg, and we give primaquine as well, 0.25 mg per kg for 14 days. In northeastern state, it's almost same. For Farsi, it's a difference there. So in Farsi, we in our territory, like in Gujarat, we it gives artesunate and 4 mg per kg for 3 days, and sulfadoxine for 25 mg per kg body weight with thiamethamine 1.5 mg per kg body weight on first day. As well as we give primaquine on day 2, that is 0.75 mg per kg. In northeastern states, usually we give artemether, lumefantrine, or artemether and lumefantrine. That's what we give. For pregnancy, P-Vivex, we give chloroquine is preferred, and for P-Palsiparum, the first trimester quinine is recommended, and for second, third trimester is artesunate therapy. So, going to the case, we were discussing chemoprophylaxis, what we can offer for that daily. So, there are 2 chemoprophylaxis which can be offered in patients when they are traveling to malaria epidemic places. So, there's short-term therapy and there's long-term therapy. So, short-term therapy is like patient who is traveling to that epidemic area for less than 6 weeks. Doxycycline is preferred, that is 100 mg daily we can give for adult, and it should be started 2 days prior to travel, and it should be continued 4 weeks after the travel. So contraindication, pregnant and lactating women and children 8 years cannot be given. Short term like doxycycline should not be given. For long term, that is more than 6 weeks, if their travel is there, then we can offer mefloquine 5 mg per kg body weight. Up to 250 mg we can give weekly. And this should be also 2 weeks prior to the travel and up to 4 weeks after leaving that area. So for the same patient, if we if we give any chemoprophylaxis, it will be compromised. So advice would be having close follow-up and watch for any symptoms of any fever or body ache or any kind of malarial symptoms. If it develops, then we can give test for the same and we can treat accordingly. So ideally, we cannot give any chemotherapy because it should be before the travel. We should start chemotherapy. Otherwise, once the travel has been done, this cannot be offered chemoprophylaxis. So going to the case number 2, this was a young male, 25-year-old male. He was used to work as a hotel manager and residing in Bhiwandi. And in September 2016, he had low-grade fever. He took symptomatic treatment. Day 2, the fever gradually started rising and was followed by myalgia as well as joint pains. And day 4, he was admitted in Pagar hospital there. He was started on Augmentin and Artesunate. Seeing the fever, myalgia, and joint pains, he was offered Artesunate and Augmentin. There was no relief as such. If you just see the blood workup, if you see the WBC slowly started rising on day 2, 3, 4, and it gradually raised, and the platelets were falling, 75,000, 40,000, and then 46,000. So, and LFT also was done, which was normal. RDT was negative. USG usually showed mild sphenomegaly and mild splenomegaly with fatty liver. Patient's fever persisted and also was offered multiple platelet transfusion. I don't know why it was given, but that's how it was given in some other place. On day 6, patient got admitted to Hinduja, and 6th and 7th day, he had that congenital hemorrhage. Day 9, the rashes developed on legs, palms, and soles. It was maculopapular rash. If you see the CBC workup which was there done in Hinduja, if you see WBC counts were gradually, it was initially 4,000, it raised up to 13,000, 20,000, and it was rising up to here, and slowly then it dropped. Platelet also was on the lower side, and then it started rising and it went up to the normal range. The workup also was done like anti-lepto, RDT, brucella, scrub typhus, everything came normal, and USG also was done, which was just showing the same scenario earlier. On admission, patient was started on ceftriaxone, later levofloxacin also were added, and then doxy was added on the 6th day of the stay, hospital stay. So if you see the whole scenario, patient had fever with chills, myalgia, arthralgia, and rash. It was non-puritic rash. In the lab, there was drop in HB. WBC was normal at start, rising WBC later on in the course. Platelet initially fall, and then again it rose, and USG was showing mild splenomegaly. So how can we differentiate according to the symptoms and parameters? Already we discussed few common disease illnesses. So if you see the main symptoms wise, chills and rigors are seen in malaria, dengue. Lepto, it can be given there. Mild, sometimes occasionally we can have chills. Rickettsia also chills can be there. Myalgia most common in dengue. Backache is also common. So these are classical symptoms in dengue, and it is also the myalgia also is seen in quite in rickettsia is common also. Headache wise, rickettsia have that headache quite a bit, and it is usually aseptic meningitis. If you see the CSF also, nothing comes up. Abdominal symptoms mostly in enteric fever and malaria can be more abdominal symptoms. Dengue also sometimes we see that abdominal nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain is also seen. Arthralgia seen in dengue as well as rickettsia, and lymphadenopathy can be seen in enteric fever. We sometimes see abdominal USG and find out mesenteric lymph nodes, and that's how we usually pick up enteric sometimes when we don't do blood culture. Otherwise, splenomegaly seen in malaria as well as rickettsia sometimes and dengue sometimes. In WBC, I mean, if the laboratory parameters, if we can differentiate, usually it is already we discussed of malaria dengue, so I won't discuss regarding same. But for enteric fever, we usually see absolute eosinopenia. That is almost 66% times we see that eosinophil becoming zero, and that's how sometimes we pick up enteric fever quite in our practice. For rickettsia, leukopenia is almost 30% the first week, then it becomes normal, and then it becomes leukocytosis. Same our scenario was patient was having that low WC counts, then became normal in second week, and later on became the counts rose a lot. In platelet, also thrombocytopenia, most of the illnesses we have thrombocytopenias, and LFTs also are abnormal in almost all the illness which we can see here. So day 15, the opinion was taken as diagnosis. The lab reports were not showing anything. So already we discussed that rash was there, palm and soles, which was non-itching rash, and eventually after proper examination, we could find the edge scar on the scrotum, and it was non-painful. If you can see this edge scar here, and here also. So edge scar was seen classically in the scrotum area, and rash also. If you can see the rash, micropapular rash, and even up to the soles, which are classically involved in this patient. And then we did a which picked up rickettsial fever. Accordingly, we gave the drug, and Doxy already he was on Doxy, and that's how the fever went off. But the diagnosis of this patient regarding the same. Going to the case number 2, the last case which I have here, it was 30-year-old male with no comorbidities. There was no history of travel. On this May 2020, right now, recently I'm talking about, he was staying in a resident of Surat only, and so there was no history of travel. He had fever with chills, headache, mild abdominal discomfort. There was no respiratory complaint as such. Symptomatic treatment was done. It showed thrombocytopenia. X-ray was normal. So dengue workup was done. Dengue IgM was showing 11.1. So if you can see the borderline values, the 11 is for positive, and it was 11.1. So he was reported dengue fever, and later on, patients even thrombocytopenia, 89,000 WB platelet count, and leukopenia also was there. So provisional diagnosis was done as dengue fever, but the next day he started coughing a lot, and at that time COVID-19 was quite rampant. 2 months, 3 months back, quite rampant. Until now, it is going on. Dengue, COVID is coming cases, and so he started coughing. So he was done. So you can see the classical ground glass opacities in multiple lung fields. This was typical of COVID, and COVID-19 swab also was 10, which came positive. So I gave this case because sometimes right now we have a lot of COVID as such cases in Surat, and other part of the India also. So in future we'll have this rainy season, and we'll have malaria, dengue coming up a lot, and that time it will be quite confusion. Really, what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with, or would be dealing with dengue? So, or we can have overlap of both. So even in this case, the report was false positive dengue. So in near future we'll have such cases where it's difficult to differentiate the two of the illnesses. So dengue and COVID-19 co-infection versus a false positive serology. So COVID can have rash, petechial rash, ischemias, urticarias, libido reticulans, manifestations. This was a study which was done in China, and where it was like COVID-19, false positive dengue serology in Singapore. And it was said that dengue and COVID-19 are difficult to differentiate and distinguish similar clinical laboratory features, and failing to consider COVID-19 as a positive dengue.
Dr. Chotole is not audible.
Yeah, it's not audible.
Something is wrong. Support kindly see.
Hello? No voice.
Now better?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Now a little better. No voice, please.
Yeah. So
Either speak loudly or something is wrong.
now
Technically.
it's better.
Okay.
It is little better.
Yeah. So now this was also a Cambridge University press release, and it showed that they said that to alert co-infection of COVID-19 and dengue virus in developing countries in dengue endemic areas. So it's basically where there's dengue endemic areas, the co-infection, as well as to differentiate. They have said that there are isolated few cases reported from Singapore and Thailand, where concern of co-infection of dengue endemic areas like Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, and South America. And there was study also which was there. There is one Ital trial, and where that study showed that 1,099 patients of COVID-19 had fever that was more than the fever was the main symptom, that was 87% of the time. And another study, dengue, we know already that fever is 100%. So both have fever, coughing, and headaches. So it is difficult to differentiate. So we should have rapid, sensitive, accessible tests to diagnose COVID-19. So luckily we have come up with antigen test, and so in the initial first week it would be easier to diagnose. And 1 week back we didn't have antigen test, 1 or 2 weeks back. So it would be it was difficult at that time. Now easier, we're getting more and more tests coming in, and later on we can make the diagnosis much easier. This was also one press release by Eswer, and where they showed the scenario of Brazil, and for Brazil it's mostly dengue fevers usually spikes by March and April, and at this time also when there was declining dengue, they had that COVID-19 spike. So this is hypothetical scenario which they have predicted in future, the two outbreaks coinciding at that time, and be great efforts to double fight against the outbreaks. So I would finish my slides regarding my vector-borne illnesses, because I've made it short and cut short regarding the main illnesses which we see in our scenarios. Thank you. As such.
Hello.
I would be glad to take any questions if we have any.
Yes. Any questions? Hello. Thank you, Chirag bhai. It was a wonderful talk on vector-borne disease. Hello. Now I request
Hello.
Dr. R.G. Goel to give introduction of Dr. Pratik Savaj.
Good evening, friends. We are lucky to listen Dr. Pratik Savaj. He is first national board qualified infectious disease physician in South Gujarat. He is running his clinic, Surat Clinic of Infectious Disease and Adult Immunization at 401 SNS Axis Business Space, Nagpura. He has done his fellowship in infectious disease and FNB from PD Hinduja Hospital, Mumbai in 2017-18. Observership in infectious disease from Harper Hospital, Karnamas Cancer Hospital, Henry Ford Hospital from Wedge State University, USA in 2018. 11th International short course in clinical tropical medicine from Christian Medical College, Bangalore. He has done many presentations, principal author of posters and publications. Thank you. Thank you, Pratik bhai.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Pratik bhai, you can start your.
Yeah. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, FPA. Thank you so much, the entire society. Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction. So, my today's topic is entomology in fever. And now you will wonder what is this entomology. So basically, entomology is about science of insect. તો ઇન શોર્ટમાં કહું તો આપણે આજે કીડા મકોડા અને એનું શું બધું વસ્તુ છે આપણે એની ડિસ્કશન કરશું. So before I start, I would like to pay tribute to my friend, my colleague, Dr. Hitesh Lathia. He is a COVID warrior, succumbed to illness yesterday morning due to severe COVID-19. He is a gentleman. He was very hardworking, very down to earth, sincere fellow. He was working in COVID ward for 2 months, and then ultimately we lost battle against COVID, and we lost this beautiful person. And we'll always remember the way he contributed to medicine, contributed to Surat city, and we will never forget him. I've been told about 2-minute talk on treatment of COVID-19. So I'll be very short because I have to talk about entomology. So basically, in COVID-19, only approved treatment is dexamethasone, and the dose of dexamethasone approved dose is 8 milligram only. So those who are giving BD or TDS, that is not the right dose. About antiviral, this is a short summary that in mild case you can give favipiravir or opidibase, but the illness should be less than 7 days. Those who have hypoxia, you can give IV remdesivir, but again it is useful in first 7 days of illness. And as per recent large randomized control trial, I would request someone to stop mic because the voice is coming in between. Then in severe case, there is no role of antiviral. And about the tocilizumab, there is lots of confusion whether it's useful or not useful. So the company who manufactured tocilizumab is a Roche Pharma, and as per phase 3 trial result, there is no benefit of tocilizumab. There is no reduction in mortality. So again, we are back to question that what is the effective treatment, which we still don't know. About role of HCQ, it's still questionable. That there are two groups. One group is saying it is useful, and one group is saying it's not useful. But what I feel in my practice, I don't find this drug useful. So this is the only short slide. And then if you have any specific question, we can take in after my talk is over. So basically, entomology is a study of insect and their relationship with human, environment, and other organisms. So you'll be surprised to note that there is separate department of entomology at Washington State University, and in many major university outside India, they have separate department of entomology. So they do study on the insect and how they are affecting life. Now, finally, we have accepted that this world is of microorganism. It's not a world of human. It is the microorganism who allowed us to live on Earth. So still there is a battle between microorganism and human. So we all know that there is an interaction between host environment and organism. So I'll remove environment and I will put insect here, because there are certain disorder where there is a constant interaction between host, insect, and organism. So we'll discuss, we'll not focus more on the disease and more on the microorganisms. We'll focus more on the insect, that how they are affecting our life. You'll be surprised to note that this patient came to my OPD 1 year ago, and very interesting patient, very interesting case. He's a 48-year male patient, and he is residing near Surat, some of the village, and he was a farmer. Basically, he came with high-grade fever, loss of vision in left eye since 3 days. He also had a severe myalgia. His CBC was normal, SGPT, SGOT was slightly elevated, and there is a history of some insect bite 5 days ago. And he was a very intelligent farmer. He took he downloaded one photograph from Google and he showed me, sir, this was the insect which gave me bite. So just see the history. It's a short history of fever, myalgia, and loss of vision in one eye. And he showed me this photograph, that this was the insect which gave him bite. So can anyone switch on their mic and let me know what is this insect and what could be the diagnosis?
Chachar.
Pardon, sir?
Is it chachar?
No, sir. Okay, so I'll tell the diagnosis. It's a hyaloma tick. It's a Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever. So basically, if you see, there are various type of tick. અને આનું ગુજરાતી નામ છે ઈતરડી. If you
Yes.
farmer, they will definitely remember. કારણ કે આ જે ઈતરડી છે ને, એ basically ગાય છે, ભેંસ છે, એમના surface પર હોય છે, and usually they feed and they bite animal only. They don't like to bite human. કારણ કે microorganism ને ખબર છે, human ને bite કરીને કઈ નથી મરવાનું. Better છે કે animal ને bite કરી. So basically there are various type of tick, but this is the hyaloma tick, and you can see there is a hard shell on their superior surface, and you can see a strip on their arm. So basically they have 8 limbs, and there are various type of ticks, and in India we see tick related spotted fever, babesiosis, Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, and Casanor forest disease. Casanor forest disease છે ને, કેરેલામાં એક forest છે. અગર if you travel to that forest and after traveling to that forest, if you develop fever, then the differential would be Casanor. Babesiosis, we all know that it's very closely resembling to malaria, and spotted fever, it's one of the type of rickettsial fever. So basically કેવું છે, આ જે hyaloma tick છે ને, they are on the animal surface, but those persons who are in constant communication with animal, એમને incidentally bite થઈ જાય. By chance continuous animal ના contact માં હોય તો એ ઈતરડી human surface પર આવીને bite કરી શકે. Usually they don't like to bite human, but it's a accidental bite. Now there is a virus inside that tick, and that tick can transfer that virus to human. But એક વખત જો હ્યુમન ને ટ્રાન્સફર થાય તો હ્યુમન ટુ હ્યુમન ટ્રાન્સપોર્ટેશન ઇઝ એક્સપોનેન્શિયલ, એટલે એટલી સ્પીડે ફેલાય, જસ્ટ લાઈક કોવિડ, કે કોવિડ એક પર્સન માંથી બીજા પર્સન માં કેટલું ફેલાય છે. સેમ થિંગ ઇફ this Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever is rapidly transmissible disease. The size of tick, અગર તમે તમારો જો ને તો નખના અડધા સાઈઝ થી પણ નાની સાઈઝ નું આ ટીક હોય. And recently there was an outbreak in Amreli city. Basically I belong to Amreli, and one of the village of Amreli, there was an outbreak of Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever. And if you see any textbook, it has very high mortality because it causes hemorrhagic fever. There is a shock, DIC, just like severe dengue fever. And this is how they used to sanitize the cow. Like basically just અત્યારે કેવું છે કે we are washing our hand, but in COVID, but in Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, they used to sanitize the cow or other pet animals. હવે તમને આ મોસ્કીટો બાઇટ થાય તો what do you think? Which is this mosquito? Is it Aedes, Anopheles, or Culex? Anyone can have a try. Anyone can switch on their mic and can give random try.
Aedes aegypti.
Excellent, excellent. So it's Aedes aegypti. And how did you identify it, sir? It's Aedes.
The dots over the body.
Perfect. So basically, there is a strip. You can see the white, black and white strip. So this is how we can identify Aedes. So this mosquito is bite to a 58-year female, and she had a fever, body ache, joint pain, and severe joint pain of palm and sole. So what do you think diagnosis could be? Aedes aegypti, mosquito, and severe joint pain and fever.
Dengue.
Okay, sir. Okay. So you are very close to the diagnosis. Actually, it's chikungunya. Basically, severe joint pain, severe arthritis, high-grade fever. So see, this is the tropical fever panel, and usually we send IgM, chikungunya. But whenever we are dealing with any viral illness less than 1 week, it is the PCR which is very helpful. So if any patient is coming to you with suspected chikungunya within 1 week, don't send IgM, send PCR. You can send individual PCR, you can send multiplex tropical fever panel. So it's a multiplex. So in that you can also detect leptospira, even malaria, rickettsia, salmonella. So she had a chikungunya. So basically they are very close, dengue and chikungunya. The only difference between dengue and chikungunya, that chikungunya have arthritis, in dengue you feel myalgia, and chikungunya will have early rash, like within day 4, and in dengue you see rash after 4th or 5th day. And usually we avoid NSAIDs in dengue and we give NSAIDs in chikungunya. So diagnosis will matter a lot in whenever you are this thing. So we have 2 more mosquito. Can anyone guess which one is the left one is which mosquito and right one is which mosquito? Okay, so I'll just simplify it. The left one is Anopheles. તમને એમ લાગે જો તમને સલામ કરે છે, પણ actually સલામી આપણી પાસેથી લેવડાવે છે. It's a malaria. It's a Anopheles which causes malaria. So I usually remember that his head is down and the tail part is up. And the right one is Culex mosquito. Culex is little brown color, and there is a curve, like there is a bending of neck. So bending of neck with brown color, it's a Culex mosquito. So Culex can cause Japanese encephalitis. And usually we don't find Culex predominant population in Gujarat. They are mainly in the northern side. So Japanese encephalitis is not common in Gujarat. So most common predominant mosquito we find is Aedes aegypti. So Anopheles will cause malaria, filaria, dirophilaria. Aedes will cause dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever, and Culex will cause Japanese encephalitis, Bancrofian filariasis. So how to control mosquito? So always remember that after monsoon you will find collector water near your house. So just search કે ભાઈ ટાયરમાં પાણી નથી, કોઈ બોક્સમાં પાણી નથી. Just try to remove that. So breeding place should not be there. Pre-COVID era માં કેવું છે કે OPD બહુ ચાલતી નહીં ને, તો આ નવરા બેઠા બેઠા મોસ્કીટોના ફોટો લેતા. So can anyone identify which one is this mosquito?
Again, Aedes aegypti.
Perfect. So તમે ક્યારેક નવરા બેઠા હોય ને, તો આવી રીતે મોબાઈલમાં જો હાઈ ડેફિનેશન કેમેરા હોય ને, તો ફોટા પાડીને જોઈ લેવાનું કે તમારા રૂમમાં એડિસ છે, એનોફિલિસ છે કે પછી માર નાખવાનો. So we'll see about Aedes mosquito. I'll tell you. See, Aedes mosquito, they are very fearless mosquito. And actually છે ને they bite in daytime. અને એકદમ ફિયરલેસ છે, ટાઈગર મોસ્કીટો, and they can travel for a long distance. એટલે એવું નથી કે જે બ્રીડિંગ પ્લેસીસ છે ત્યાં જ વધારે હશે. They can travel for lots of kilometers also.
Read.
That is why breeding place at any site, અગર તમારે ઘરના નજીકમાં નથી,
Ask
તમારી
me.
ઓફિસની સાઈડમાં છે, so you should remove this breeding place. And we know that mosquito population is rising. So now we'll move on to case number 3. Again, it's a very interesting case. He's a 29-year male patient, pyrexia of unknown origin of 3 months. He has lost 10 kg of weight. He had a massive splenomegaly, pancytopenia, and altered albumin globulin ratio. So he has bite to this sand fly. So can anyone guess what could be the diagnosis? Bite of sand fly and pyrexia of unknown origin. So presentation was like tuberculosis. Can anyone have a random thought? Okay, so I'll move to next slide. He is from Bihar. Bihar, pyrexia of unknown origin, massive splenomegaly.
Leishmaniasis.
Perfect, sir. Perfect. So basically, we are dealing with leishmaniasis. So leishmaniasis has a 3 presentation. One is a cutaneous, second is a visceral, and third is a mucosal. So initially, it start with cutaneous. After the bite of sandfly, there is a cutaneous
Master.
inoculation, and then
Master.
it will cause visceral. So how do we diagnose? We usually take a biopsy or aspiration and do histopathological examination. So earlier times splenic biopsy was taken, but nowadays it's risky. So bone marrow or lymph node biopsy is taken. Sometimes you can do it from simple blood by doing Buffy-Coat examination. And this is what we see on the histopath examination. And this is the amastigote and kinetoplast form of this thing, demonstration of parasite on histopathological examination. So we have RK39 strip antigen test, and amphotericin B and miltefosine is the treatment of choice. And this is super exciting case. So listen, just see the history. He's a 53-year male and he is having diabetes. So initially he started having memory loss. But he became irritable. After some time, there was a ataxia, and then later he was confused. So over 10 months, he consulted multiple times to psychiatrist because it was purely psychological complaint, memory loss, irritation, confusion, irrelevant behavior. And then finally got admitted to neurology department. And then detailed history was taken. On detailed history, it was found that he has multiple visits to Ghana, the basically African country. And on detailed history, we found that he was having insect bite. And he said that એક વખત એને એવી એક bite થયેલું which was very painful, which was lasted for many days. એટલી painful bite હતી. And he visited one of the garden in Ghana, and in that garden he had this bite. So he was clearly remembering the bite of insect. And he said it was most painful bite. And એને કીધું કે આટલું painful bite તો he never felt. એને એવું કીધું મારી વાઇફ સાથે ઝઘડો કરવો એટલો પેઇન ના થાય એટલો આ બાઇટ થી એને પેઇન થયેલો. So then finally neurologist did CSF examination. This parasite was found in his CSF. So can anyone guess the diagnosis? Okay, I'll show you this.
Chagas disease.
Pardon, sir?
Chagas disease.
You are very near to the diagnosis, sir. One of the different form of Chagas disease. Chagas disease is again one of the type of that group infection only. So this was the fly, and the name of this fly is tsetse fly. So what is the diagnosis? It's a African sleeping sickness. It's a trypanosoma. So this is the tsetse fly. આ tsetse fly ની bite એટલી painful છે કે you will remember for decades. અગર તમે testing કરવું હોય તો you can go to I'll send you the name of garden in Africa. You can have visit to that garden and you can remember the bite. And this is the distribution of that tsetse fly mainly in the Central Africa. So કોઈ પણ Central Africa માં travel કરીને આવે અને if you find that patient is having neurological complaint, very slowly progressive and not improving with antipsychotic, rule out African sleeping sickness. So basically this is the situation. Pela tsetse fly ni bite thase, you will find chancre after 3 to 15 days near that site. Then patient will have fever, then patient will have rash and urticaria, and after 1 year of the bite, patient will have neurological complaint. And if it's not treated on time, then patient will die within 3 years. So this is the cycle of African sleeping sickness. Usually pentamidine, suramine, these are the drug of choice. So basically, this tsetse fly they feed blood of animal. Basically, animal and humans na blood per they live, and this is how in Africa they sanitize animal, cow or other animal. And usually, one of the common reason of animal death, especially cow and sheep, it's because of bite of tsetse fly. So there are ઘણી બધી tsetse fly ના bite થી that animal used to die. This is again one of the interesting case we will see commonly in your OPD. 3-year baby comes with mother, and baby is having severe itching, especially on the palm, sole, on near the axilla, near the elbow. And on detailed history, we found that mother also have history of skin rash, and mother also had a bite. So microscopic examination was done, and this was the mite found in the skin examination. It's not visible not visible through eye, but it was on the microscopic examination. So can anyone guess the diagnosis?
Scabies.
Perfect, sir. Perfect. So it's a scabies. It's a thromboculid mite, and usually it's not visible. This is the circle of Hibra, and especially the wrist joint, axilla, medial surface of the elbow joint, and the perineal region. So this is the area where that mite will create a burrow, and that will cause severe itching. And so these are the common site of infection. So basically, scabies is always a clinical diagnosis. Whenever patient comes with intense itching, and especially on the web space of palm and axilla, and there is again one more member is also suffering, like caregiver, either baby's mother or baby's father. So, and it's always sign of poor hygiene if they don't maintain proper hygiene at home. So it's a sign of poor hygiene. This is the last case, and very interesting. It's he's a 52-year male. He is very fond of traveling. He came to me with fever of 5 days, and there was a history of travel to forest 1 week ago, and his CBC was normal. So on detailed examination, I found this was a rash on near axilla, and this was the bite of insect. So can anyone tell me what is the diagnosis?
Forest man.
So this is the rash, particular classic rash, and this is the classic insect which is causing this infection. So now anyone can tell me it's a shigar, and the type of rash is eschar. Now can anyone tell me the diagnosis? Pardon, sir? It's a very common in our India, and do we commonly see in our OPD and IPD also.
Scorpion
It's a scrub typhus.
Scorpion bite.
This is a eschar, classic cigarette bun, and this is the one of the type of insect, and it's a shigar, and it's clearly visible on surface. So basically, scrub typhus is commonly seen between September to January. So we are in the season of scrub typhus. Usually,
Again, voice is not there. Sir, no voice. Dr. Pratik, you are audible.
Pratik bhai, you're not getting voice.
Something is wrong in technically.
Yeah,
Come.
am I audible?
Now
Yes,
you are
yes,
audible.
fine.
So I think there was some technical issue. I'll again share my presentation. Is it visible and audible?
Yes, visible, audible, no.
So where were we last? Okay, the site of possible infection. I think it was the last slide.
Yes, yes.
ઓકે સો બેઝિકલી જે સિટી પાર્ક્સ છે ઘરના આજુબાજુના એરિયાસ છે ખાસ કરીને ગાર્ડન અને જે વુડન બાઉન્ડરીઝ હોય ને એના ઉપર આ શિગર ફરતા હોય and especially in the river and mountain area. So if your house is like this, there is a wooden boundary and there is this garden like thing. So these are the predominant area where this mite and this sugar is found. So you'll be surprised to know there is a Sutsuga Mushi triangle. So what is a Sutsuga Mushi triangle? It is the India, some of the part of China, Japan, Korea, and some of the part of Australia. So in this triangle, during September to January, we see lots and lots of cases of scrub typhus. So this is a Sutsuga Mushi triangle, and we are our India is entirely inside this triangle. So especially if I've seen lots of publication regarding scrub typhus, and we have not seen publication from Gujarat. So, but what I feel that we do see lots of cases of this thing, scrub typhus in Gujarat also. So thank you so much, and it was a lovely interacting with all of you, and I am ready to take question.
Yeah, Pratik bhai, for the lovely talk.
Pratik bhai.
We have been treating the 1 minute. We have been treating the disease caused by the insects. But many of us have seen the insects today only.
Hello,
Thank you,
Pratik
sir.
bhai.
Yeah,
Yes.
question.
હમણાં આપણે છે તે સ્ટીરોઇડ યુઝ વિશે જે વાત કરી કોવિડમાં, અમે ઘરે આઇસોલેશનમાં પેશન્ટને ટ્રીટ કરીએ છીએ, તો કેવી રીતે છે તે સ્ટીરોઇડ વાપરવું અને ક્યારે વાપરવું?
Sir, ideally, see, patient can take IV preparation, then it's very easy. You can give IV dexamethasone 8 milligram OD. So basic indication of steroid, it is the clinical hypoxia. So if you find SpO2 less than 94, or if you find post-work SpO2 less than 90 to 90, and if you see there is a breathlessness, clinical sign of storm, then definitely you can give dexamethasone IV. Either you can give 8 milligram IV or even muscular. So if
Pratik bhai is asking
if
for a
you don't
home
like to give
isolation.
IV, you can give it.
નહીં,
He's asking for home isolation treatment.
in home isolation, when to give steroid and whether we can give prophylactically
Yes.
or not. And
Sir,
that too, can we give it orally?
Ideally, sir, no steroid for prophylaxis. So see,
Yes.
I have seen that steroid is being given for high grade fever, severe symptom. So actually steroid is not for fever, steroid is not for myalgia, steroid is not to decrease. So many patient comes to my OPD, sir, CRP ઘટાડવાની કઈ સારી દવા લખી આપો ને, એક્ઝામ એ સાંભળ્યું છે કે એનાથી CRP ઘટે છે, તો મને ટેન્શન થાય છે, CRP વધી ગયું છે મારું. So I always tell them કે see, I am not a doctor who will reduce your CRP. I am a doctor who will cure your disease. So please don't come to my OPD if you want to reduce CRP. So,
One more thing, if steroid given earlier may harm,
yes, sir. So basically, there is one study.
as you said, when the SpO2 is going down, if given earlier, then also it is going to reduce your immunity so that the disease can flare up.
So there are two problems if steroid is given early. One thing is it will prolong the viremia. So there are a high chance of cytokine storm after 15 to 20 days. And the second problem with steroid, initially it will halt process. The patient will feel better that I am okay, but later on definitely he will worsen. So no steroid for pyrexia, no steroid for high marker. Only indication of steroid is clinical hypoxia.
But
So
then it is better if at all required, it is given in the hospital.
yes, preferably patient should be encouraged to get admitted, and patient should be done some investigation, and then steroid should be started. Preferably not to be given at home. But sometime what happen if patient insists to take home, so it should be under the observation of senior physician or senior general practitioner.
But 8 milligram IV, will it be a higher dose? So that is required.
Sir, actually the UK trial said it is the 6 milligram, but our preparation is little different from UK preparation. They have some different dexamethasone preparation. So if we consider our preparation equivalent to theirs, so our preparation is 8 milligram, which is equivalent to their 6 milligram preparation. So 8 milligram IV OD is a sufficient dose. So even patient is getting admitted with severe hypoxia, it is the 8 milligram IV OD, not BD or TDS.
And for 3 to 5 days, how many days?
So basically it depend upon the how patient is responding. If patient become hypoxic free within 3 days, then definitely you can stop as soon as possible. But if patient is having persistent hypoxia, you need to continue steroid till hypoxia. And if duration is more than 7 days, you need to convert it to orally and slowly taper it down. If within 7 days, if you are stopping, you can suddenly stop.
As per your say, as tocilizumab is not that effective, only steroid remains as far as the severity is concerned.
Sir, usually we still, even I am still giving tocilizumab. The reason is કે relative લઈને આવી જાય કે સર અમારી પાસે 2 ઓઇલ પડેલા છે, તમે આપી જ દો સર વિચાર્યા વગર. અને અમારા 2 પેશન્ટ tocilizumab જ ઇમ્પ્રુવ થયા છે. So even Roche Pharma કહેશે ને કે tocilizumab is not effective, but our Indian patients relative will not accept. એ તમને ગમે એમ કરીને અપાવડાવું છે.
એટલે છેલ્લા 2-3 લેક્ચરમાં એ જ થયું કે tocilizumab એટલું ઇફેક્ટિવ નથી. અને પહેલા 4-5 દિવસ પહેલા લેક્ચર હતું, એમણે કીધું 2 દિવસમાં રોસ વળાનું છે તેમ કે ડિક્લેર થશે. અને you also said that it is of not effective as far as the mortality is concerned. Then this must be promoted as it is a very wrong concept amongst the people and patients. If I am given this injection, I am saved.
હેલો સર, તમારો વોઇસ નથી આવતો બરાબર.
Okay. As there was a very great this thing about tocilizumab. People are also of the opinion that if I am given this injection, I am saved, and they become just tension free as far as the disease is concerned.
રાઈટ સર, રાઈટ.
જોશી સાહેબ, લોકોને એવું છે કે મોંઘું ઇન્જેક્શન છે એટલે સારું થઈ જાય.
હા, એટલે that psychology is for just perpetuating.
Right, sir.
સાહેબ કહેતે લોકો લઈને ઇન્જેક્શન લઈને આવે છે. જુઓ. Any more question? Any more question?
No.
Bajpai Sahib, you want to announce something?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
One announcement and one information to all members. I am audible?
Yes, yes.
I am audible. Respected member, happy monsoon. Dear friends, I am happy to share with you that FFPI is running a social security scheme for our members named FSS. Any eligible member may join the scheme up to the age of 65 years without any medical examination. This year, 40 deaths was there for our respected members. Association paid them rupees 3,80,000 to each nominee of that family. The contribution by member is 500 by every member. It is my request to all members of all units for the sake of ourselves and for the sake of our friends, kindly join the scheme. If members will increase, we will be able to pay more to the family. For details, kindly contact to your unit and to central office. It is my official request. Kindly join the scheme and be happy. Thank you very much. Announce the same for next webinar. Thank
Yes,
you, sir.
thank you, Bajpal sir. The next CME webinar is at Bombay, and the topic is nutrition in geriatric. That is on 30th of August, Thursday, 4 p.m.
And the speaker is Shilpa Shashank Joshi. The
Yes.
speaker is Shilpa Shashank Joshi.
Okay. Fine.
Shilpa Shashank Joshi is speaker.
Yes, yes. So, on behalf of FAPI and all, I thanks everyone for attending this. It was a nice talk about also and Chirag Sapani. As I have said, we have enjoyed it. And I congratulate Dr. Bajpai sir to arranging such the CME. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all.
Okay.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Siya Ram.